Welcome back, friends, to How to Crush the Caro-Kann Defense as White. In the first episode, I went over the basics of the Accelerated Panov Attack. In the next episode, I went over by far the most common line, and the line that almost all beginners play, with queen takes d5, where we play in a style very reminiscent of the Smith-Morra Gambit. In this episode, we'll be covering the other main lines, including, first of all, the main line with knight f6 playing in a very similar style to the modern Scandinavian defense, where instead of recapturing the pawn, immediately they put it off. The other line I decided I want to cover is the open variation in the Accelerated Panov. This is played maybe 5% of the time across the board, but closer to 15% at the top level of chess. Considering this episode will be slightly more geared toward advanced players, I figured it would be a good idea to also include this. But first, we're going to cover the knight f6 variation in the mainline Accelerated Panov. They play d5, we capture, knight f6, and the line I'll be recommending here is a very tricky sideline, very rarely seen at the amateur level, but very commonly seen at the top level of chess. Queen a4 check, and the first thing to point out here, I already alluded to in the intro video, but I think I remember the numbers wrong. In this position, 7% of players with an average rating of 1990 to be specific, will just straight up hang their queen immediately, obviously to bishop b5, and then most players will make it worse with knight to c6. So even though this is obviously a blunder from our opponent, it is a very good hint to why we're playing this way in the first place. After all, our opponent is a Caro-Kann player. They're used to having a Caro-Kann structure. Having a pawn on d5 and no pawn on e6 or c6 is going to have our opponent very much out of their comfort zone. And assuming they don't immediately blunder their queen, the two moves are bishop d7 and knight bd7 to block. We'll start with bishop d7, which is about twice as common as the knight move, with an average rating of 2000, and unfortunately for opponents, this is a mistake. The move here should be obvious, queen b3. Retreating and adding a defender to this pawn. In fact, whenever they play the knight f6 line, it is possible for us to hang on to this pawn. And should they play extremely solidly, we can eventually reinforce this pawn with bishop c4, d3, and we can be just as greedy as Yasser Saruhan if we want. So what else are we doing? Obviously, we're threatening to take on b7, making this extra uncomfortable for our opponent. Let's follow some of the most common moves. First of all, queen to c7. First of all, queen c7, they're threatening to capture our bishop, so we will want that to not happen. We'll want to block that and defend our pawn with knight to c3. Again, following the most common move, a6. So we're going to play very normally with d4. Opening up our bishop and preparing for the exact same idea we saw in the Scandinavian defense series when they move their queen to d6, and also in the last episode of this series where they retreat their queen back to d6. Our general plan is going to be knight ge2 and then bishop f4. However, we're playing against the Caro, and in a very similar style to playing the two knights attack in the Caro, we're also usually going to want to fianchetto. This can be another way to support our tempo move with the bishop, but I prefer just keeping it simple. And regardless of what our opponent plays, we're going to start with knight ge2 and then bishop f4. For example, afterwards, their squares will be very limited, these pawns putting in a surprising amount of work, and the position plays itself. This bishop will want to be fianchettoed, but we'll also want to make sure we don't trap this bishop. So that's why I consider the most popular move, queen c7, to be pretty inaccurate. The second most common move, which you'll see a lot, is this move, queen b6. Attempting to convert to an endgame because they're a Caro-Kann player, and I hate to say it, but I actually allow this particular endgame. I play bishop c4. If they don't capture, I would argue we're better. The most common move by far though is capturing, in which case we'll recapture with the bishop. Not bad to open up our rook, but I prefer keeping the pawn structure intact considering we already have this going on. And I find this endgame very comfortable to play. I've had quite a few of them. First of all, they usually are forced to move their knight to a6. Our moves are pretty natural, just reinforcing this pawn. But as you can see, things can get complicated. But I recommend taking the time to actually study this endgame and the way people tend to play it, because you will see this endgame a lot, just based on the way that Caro-Kann players like to play naturally, trading into an endgame. But with a little study, I think we can get a much better position. Alright, moving on. So we're going to let them convert into the endgame. Next, let's cover what happens if they're worried about losing this pawn, but don't want to move their queen for some reason, I guess, and play b6. Shouldn't surprise you if this is a pretty bad move. We'll start the same way with knight c3, defending this pawn. e6, just letting us trade off our weak pawn. I guess thinking they'll capture with tempo, but we can just play bishop c4. We're a pawn up. This is great for us. I would imagine this is probably mostly played by beginners, but there's the refutation, I guess. What else? g6 just hangs b7. Again, getting a Caro-Kann player into a tactical position just isn't going to go well for them. That should be your takeaway from this. Finally, I'll cover the best move, e6, and we have two options here. First, we can capture, give up our initiative, and our best attacking piece in order to be up a pawn. This is certainly not the worst option. However, I'm going to recommend keeping it complicated and capturing on b7. The reason I like this so much is it forces them them into either finding e takes d5 or bishop to c5, but again, it's a Caro player. Expecting a Caro-Kann player to calculate tactics consistently, it's like playing Super Smash Bros. And expecting a floaty main to tech consistently. If you know, you know. It's just not the playstyle they're used to. So first, what happens if they collect the pawn, arguably the best move. Here, bishop b5. Once again, following the theme of abusing this light diagonal to the king, the engine move here is bishop d6. If you see bishop d6 over the board, go get the arbiter. Jesus Christ. Most people will capture, which is absolutely a mistake and gives us exactly what we want. First of all, if they block with queen, regrettably, we don't have a bishop to put here anymore. And in this position, we are more than willing to convert to an endgame. After all, now, not only are we a pawn up, but their pawn structure has been blown to bits. We have 2 targets and they only have 1. This should be an easy win for us. So that's why I recommend capturing on b7, even though I know a lot of versions of Stockfish really don't like it. Getting lucky with 17.1, but just know the goal is to continue complicating things and to not give the Caro-Kann player the one thing they know, an equal position and trading pieces off. So that is everything I really wanted to cover after bishop d7. I think in most lines we have a very easy way of playing for an advantage out of the opening, but now it's time to move on to the more challenging knight bd7. Played about half as much as the bishop move across the board, but much more accurate. And considering our opponent has played very accurately, the average rating of a player that makes it to this point is around 2200, so we're going to have to try extra hard to make this game interesting against them. I recommend the move bishop c4, which I know is going to make some of you instantly uncomfortable because of all the tactics that start popping up. So we're going to need to remember to retreat our queen at some point, usually to somewhere like a3. We'll start by following the most common moves, g6, here, d3. Once again, when our opponent plays super accurately, we want to put on our Yasser Seirawan hat and be as greedy as possible when it comes to these pawns. Bishop g7, once again, we develop and defend this pawn again. Castles, knight f3, and a6. If your opponent is a strong master level or expert level player and they know their theory and the accelerated Panov, this is how they're going to play. And this is why we need to remember the move queen a3 that I mentioned earlier. Don't even bother with calculating these tactics. It's just not worth the risk. If your queen ever feels threatened, just fall back to a3. But it's also a retreating attacking move, pinning down our opponent's queen to the defense of this pawn. And then the other purpose of this move is made obvious. If they add another attacker to this pawn, trying to even out the material, a very Caro-Kann player thing to do. By retreating to a3, we still have the option of forming a battery. And then once again, like Yasser Seirawan, we can greedily hang on to this extra pawn. So that is the ultra theoretical line. The good news is it's really simple for us to play. All we have to do is remember a couple plans and be comfortable converting into a good endgame. It's still the funniest thing ever to me that so many people are just hanging their queen right off the bat. The next line after bishop b to d7 that we're going to cover is after we play bishop c4. What happens if they start with the idea of a6 and b5? Obviously, we don't just immediately want to retreat our queen. After all, if they played b5 here, we could simply capture with our bishop. After all, these tactics are much less scary when the knight is pinned. We'll continue supporting our pawn and developing. Once again, if b5, we can just capture. So most people will prepare for b5 with rook to b8. So why am I covering this specific line? Well, because you'll run into opponents that play this idea of a6 and b5 who aren't necessarily playing the absolute theoretical line. And in situations like this, when our plan would usually be retreating to a3 and the main line, here this is absolutely going to lose material. So always remember that concrete calculations will always supersede the sort of general plans I give in these videos. And in a circumstance like this, the way I'd recommend playing is dropping the bishop back to b3, and then once they play b5, you can just retreat your queen to the opposite side of the board. Our pawn is still over defended, plus we get to keep our lead in development. So just remember, whenever they play this idea with a6, b5, always look out for pawn forks here. And those are all the lines I really wanted to cover after knight f6 and queen a4 check. So the final variation I wanted to go over in how to crush the Caro-Kann is the modern variation where they play the early e5. This is called the open variation because it's sort of like an open game, but with the obvious inaccuracy of having a pawn on c6. Considering they have a pawn on c6, they can't develop their knight to c6. So with this in mind, it should be very easy to remember that our first move will always be knight f3. The most common move by far is d6. Here the best move is breaking open the center with d4. Afterwards, if they grab it, we can take back with our queen, because once again, there's a pawn on c6. We'll develop in a very natural manner, and as long as we play classically, we should be able to retain our advantage. Personally, I've always found this variation sort of silly, so it's a surprise to me that it's played so much at the top level. But if we just remember to take advantage of the fact that there's a pawn on c6, by first targeting the pawn with knight to f3, and then by breaking in the center, we should be more than fine. Our opponent's pieces are relegated to more passive squares, and we have a huge space advantage. In my opinion, the open variation necessitates dropping our original plan entirely. I think it's inaccurate enough to justify playing more classically. And that's it for how to crush the Caro-Kann as white. Next up is the Benoni.